Greetings viewer, EricTheCarGuy here, and welcome to another fun-filled adventure in my mechanical playground, where I bring you along with me on the little things I do in here in my humble shop. Anyway, today we have a 2001 Jeep Grand Cherokee. A lot of those out there. And this one has a straight six 4-liter engine in it. And I've recently replaced the starter, which you can find in another video. However, when I start this thing up, I'm a little concerned with the noise I hear. Why don't you give a listen? Now, are you as concerned about this as I am? You should be. To me, it sounds like metal parts that are loose and not having a good time down inside that engine. In fact, it kind of sounds like maybe it's in the top end to me. And I say maybe because, honestly, with engine noises like this, they can be somewhat tricky to track down. However, there is something we could try, and it's not going to cost too much. Pretty much it's just going to cost us a valve cover gasket. So, in this video, if nothing else, you'll learn about pulling the valve cover off of a 4-liter straight six from Jeep here. So I'm just going to go through the process of removing this valve cover gasket, and then I'm going to check around and see if I can find the source of that noise. And before you get all, hey Eric, did you check the oil? Well, yes I did. And this is what we got. You can see that, yes, it is well within its level. It's right here around the bottom dot. It's not low enough to where it's, I think that's what's going to be causing the noise. I can almost hear you asking. 191, 282. What we got on the mileage. All right, let's start with like an overview. We got these two hoses going to the PCV system. We've got a few of these throttle cables. And to tell you the truth, I don't want to fight with these. So what I'll probably do is I'll remove the air cleaner assembly, and then I'll go through and I'll disconnect these cables and I'll take this whole thing and lay it up out of the way. To me, it just seems easier to do that. Now, I've already sort of jumped the gun. There is a bracket here that holds these heater hoses in place, and it just sits down on top of one of these studs right here and keeps these heater hoses from, you know, flopping around and all that. But now that I've got that out of the way, I can expose these fasteners going along this area here all the way to the back. Also, there's this harness assembly that was seated down on these studs, as you can see, all the way down. And all I did with that was I took, I've got these pliers, and let's see if I got a number for you on these. I doubt I do, but these were from Mac. They're like 45-degree angle pliers, and I just took them down underneath here and just sort of used them to pry up on these, and I was able to knock this loose, but as you can see, it's already hitting on this. Looks like there's a little bit of this exhaust, well, I wouldn't really call it exhaust, it's just more of a heat shield that's there that I need to sort of move out of the way. But I think step one is going to be to get the stuff off of the valve cover. This PCV hose. Let's see if I can, yeah, I can do that. Turn that up out of the way. I'm gonna get this off of here. I'm just gonna take the bolts of this bracket off and just unhook everything from the throttle assembly. And then, as I said, I'm just gonna take this and move it up out of the way. And then really, it's fairly straightforward from there. You just got a series of fasteners going down the length of the valve cover, and should be able to just pull the whole thing up off of here once we get those fasteners out of the way. Let's start by removing this air cleaner assembly. Since this is easily undone, a couple of clips, just pull up, push back. There's a hidden one under here. And get that part loose. And then I'm just gonna loosen the fasteners for this guy here. You can see down under here, we got this hose clamp that's gonna hold part of this on, in addition to what looks like a fastener over here on this side. Before I get too deep, you know, they say this in just about every major procedure you ever do, and just about every single manual, is to remove the negative battery cable. to start the procedure. It takes that long, and it can prevent you from possibly causing damage to the system. So, you know, why not remove the negative battery cable to start with? Now let's do our little 8. I kind of like to take my fasteners, keep them kind of where they were when I set stuff down. This way, when I go to put it back together, stuff is easy to find. Now that the top's off my throttle body, I'm feeling a little exposed. So I'm just gonna take a rag and just stuff it down in here. That way, I don't drop anything down inside the engine. Dropping things inside the engine will probably make worse noises than what I have now. And now it's gonna be a lot easier to see these 3 fasteners that I'm gonna remove next in order to get this cable assembly up out of the way. And then I'm going to, I might even be able to do that now. Yep, sure can. And for these that sort of hook in, you got to pull them forward. And they should. If you got enough slack in the cable, you can make more slack by doing that. But these sort of hook in, as you can see. They pull back and hook. This one is sort of a ball and socket kind of deal that fits down in there. And here's another one that, yeah, sort of push forward with. These are all 10 millimeter. Now that those fasteners are undone, I can just take the whole assembly, move it out of the way. Now I can lift this harness out of the way, and a trick that you've seen me employ in the past is if I want to keep something out of the way, I just bungee it, hook it. There's a fair amount of debris here, and I guess what I'll do first is I'll remove this heat shield to get that out of the way. I'm trying to be delicate and not mess it up. But that's just what it is. It's just a heat shield that's just laying there. Don't lose it. It's kind of important. So I'm just going to set it over here for now, up out of the way. And then because there's still a great deal of debris here and I don't want that to get down inside the engine, I'm just going to take a little compressed air and just sort of blow along the outside of here and try to get as much of this away from where I'm working. And here's a good reason to have this here. I'm not looking for surgical quality here. I'm just looking to get the chunks out of the way so when I take the valve cover off, a bunch of junk doesn't go in the engine. Now, I'm not going to show you every single bolt that I take out here because it's just not necessary. But you can see that there's some that are long that come up through here and some that are just like regular bolts like this. But around the perimeter of the entire assembly, looks like I got another bracket here for the AC to get up out of the way. That was there on that stud. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go along the outside and undo all of these fasteners. And that one in the back there with the ground cable is pretty important because this is the body ground. Basically runs up and attaches to the body over here. Without it, you could have some problems with some of the electrical components of the vehicle. So real important that we reattach this. Real important that we don't damage it in any way, because if we do, we could cause electrical issues. And this back here is another hook for a harness, which I'm just gonna push that up off of there. I guess as far as this PCV line goes, I'm just gonna try to find out where it can disconnect the easiest, because these are plastic parts and they may be quite ready to break. In fact, I can feel them. I can feel a disturbance in the force when I touch them. It's like we are old and brittle and we will break at the slightest chance. At the first opportunity, we're gonna break on you and cost you money. So be real conservative and careful when you undo stuff like this. First, what I'll do is I'll twist them to see if I can get them to twist. And if I can get them to twist, that's usually a good sign. And I think I did. So now it's a matter of using two hands instead of trying to show off my one-handed mechanicness. Hose pliers. Yay. As long as you got one end, that's all you need is one end. Just gonna fish this back in such a way to where it's out of my way, more in line with the valve cover. Now, I'm gonna undo all those fasteners I showed you. Before I do that, I'm gonna try to pry up this harness attachment here. Success. Well, now it's just a question of removing all those fasteners that I showed you around the valve cover itself. These are, I found, 11 millimeter. I'm just gonna use my 1/4 inch to do it with. And I like to start with the hard stuff first. So I'm just going to this back one, first thing. And just so that you can keep track, the studs stop right there underneath where the throttle cables were. And then the rest are all bolts around the front until you get back to the oil cap. So everything up front before the oil cap on this side is all bolts. Okay, all our fasteners are out, but there's something we got to be careful of. These are not held down, I don't think. So when we go to pop this loose, those might have a tendency to go popping off. I just want to be real mindful of that. I'm just gonna, instead of trying to pick each and every one of them off, I'm hoping my valve cover set comes with new ones, but just in case it doesn't, I want to be careful. So I'm just going to get a small pry bar and, well, actually I probably won't even need it. And lift this valve cover on up off of here. It's gonna be real hard to do one-handed, so I gotta put you back on the stand. Aha! All right, before you get too happy and break something, I just reached back here and there is one more fastener in the back of this valve cover that you need to get. It's all the way in the back here, underneath this harness. So make sure you get that one. Yeah, that's the only other one that you really can't see, but it's all the way in the back. If you stick your hand back here, you'll be able to feel it. Now let's see if she'll come off. Yeah, when I go to try to get this off of here, that just that little lip there is making contact with that radiator hose clamp. So I'm gonna just move the clamp out of the way, and I'm hoping I'll be able to slip it past. Just move the clamp, not the hose. All right, what do we have? I'm just gonna see if I can feel anything that's loose. Spinning the push rods, the ones that I can spin. Want to run this engine with the valve cover off to see if we can hear it a little better? I'll show you how we can do it. In order to run the engine without the valve cover on, we've got to control the oil. And the only thing that's really going to have oil up here is this small little hole that you see right here in the rocker arm. Oil is delivered up through the push rod, up through the rocker assembly, and pretty much just bathes this area. So if we don't do something to block off these holes, oil is going to squirt off everywhere. And for that, we're going to use my good friend, the paper clip. I'm just going to take this paper clip and I'm going to insert it into each one of these holes and lock it onto this rocker shaft, and we'll be able to run the engine with the valve cover off, and we won't have oil spraying everywhere. So I'm just bending this out like this. We'll start with this one since it's convenient. And just insert that down in there. And then I want to make sure it stays, so I'm just going to hook the paper clip itself around the rocker arm like this. This way, as the engine runs, the oil's still going to come up through here, but it's not going to go everywhere if this was not here. And just get that down to the push rod a little bit. Well, not too much. But this way, I can run the engine without the valve cover on. So I'm going to do this all down the line, and then we'll start it up. And maybe we can hear the noise a little better. Maybe we can see what oil delivery's like. We can get a little more information on possibly where this noise is coming from. All right, well, here we have it. Kind of cool, huh? Are you scared? Don't be. I think we should remove this, however. Suppose I should reconnect this too. That'll probably help. Now, I'm not going to run this for a long period of time, but for a little while. I don't think we'll have trouble with our radiator hose, because I don't think that's going anywhere. At least I hope it doesn't. If it does, well, there'll be a mess. But you know what? It's my shop. As you can see, it was starting to get a little messy, so I turned it off. But looks like we've got good oil delivery to all this stuff up here, or else we wouldn't see the puddles like we do. But there certainly is a great deal of noise here. And the next thing is to find out where the heck that's coming from. Something I should warn you about is some of these didn't want to come out again so easy. So I'm having to take a pair of vice grips and pull them up out of there because they went down into the push rods. You don't want these things breaking off in there either, because that will clog up the oil passage. That would not be good. Got all my paper clips out. Now the question is, where does this leave us? We still have a substantial noise. It sounds like it's coming from up front here. I'm not real sure. And we've got good oil delivery, so we know it's not an oil pressure problem. Something's loose. Maybe it's a collapsed lifter, maybe it's a worn out cam lobe. Really difficult to say at this point without doing some precise measurement. So my only I hate to do this to you, but my only mandate at this point was to get this valve cover off and check the tightness of these rocker shafts. And if they're good, then that's all I can do for now. I'm going to take the valve cover gasket off, which is fairly easy. Okay, there it is. It's not really too complicated. Thankfully it's a rubber gasket, because if this was cork, man, we'd have to scrape off every single bit of it. That would not be fun. So I'm going to run down these rocker shafts and check to see how tight they are, and if they're all tight, well, I've got to call it a day on this one, unfortunately. I'm going to use a chrome socket in here. This is a 1/2 inch, but you could also use a 13. And I'm just going to check to see how tight they are. Just looking for something that's like loose. Not really finding it. No, didn't really find anything at all. There's a little bit of oil down in these bolt holes, and I'm just going to come in with some compressed air and blow that out of there. This can create a situation where you go to run the bolt in and it'll actually lock it up or seize it up. So I want to make sure that I clear that oil out of there before I put the valve cover on. It's much better when the holes are clean. Here's my new gasket. I just got to make sure to get it on correctly. And I'm just going to lay it down and see if everything lines up. And if it doesn't, flip it over, try again. I guess it would have helped if I'd have paid attention when I took the original one off. They were kind enough to give me some studs that the gasket fits on. There's another one back here. I don't know how well you can see it. That are really nice as far as locating this gasket and getting it in the right place. Remember how I was talking about my new gasket and I was hoping that it would come with new grommets? Well, this one does, thankfully. Which means I'm probably going to have to take each and every one of these out. And it looks like these have metal sleeves in them. These new ones just look like they have like a plastic clip that clips into the valve cover. That disintegrated when I did that. Okay, so this part does not come with the new grommet. You have to put it on. But I think what I'll do is I'll take all my old ones out first, clean up the valve cover a little bit, and then install these. But that's the basic principle. Do that until you got them all in there. Looks like this will clip in. In fact, what I think I'll do is I think I'll clip the new grommet in first, and then once it's clipped in, I'll insert the metal part, because that'll help lock it in place, and that'll probably make it so that this inserts inside the valve cover a little bit easier. So I'm going to get all these old ones out and then clean the valve cover and then put the new ones in. Let's go clean it up. Kind of wishing I had a parts washer right now. Probably a good idea to invest in one. But I'm just going to use brake cleaner, some rags. Just going to soak it a little bit. It's like washing dishes. I'm just trying to make it so that if it starts to leak again, I'll be able to see it easier. That's really all I'm going for here. This, we have a hole. We're going to fill it with the new grommet. And then I'm going to take the new, or the old metal, insert it down in there, like that, and do that over, and over, and over. I'm gonna quickly wipe down the mating surface, because actually that's the most important one. I'm happy with that. All right, if memory serves, I have to hold my tongue just right in order to get this thing in here. So, wish me luck. Amazingly, much easier going in than coming out. Now it's just a matter of reinstalling all our fasteners. And I'm not gonna tighten any of them down until they're all in. If you tighten one of them down and then you go to put another one in and it doesn't want to go in, that's because you didn't quite have the threads lined up. This way you got a little bit of movement in the gasket, so if the threads aren't lining up, you'll be able to move it. So put all of them in finger tight first and then run them down. Now we're all tightened down. Really, it's just a question of like getting all my stuff back together over here and then getting it nailed down. It ain't hard. Don't forget the hose clamp. Okay, I can put my heat shield back down in there. Now my harness. PCV hose back in place. Be careful with this. This can be old, brittle, and just not a happy deal. And I think I'll bring those throttle body cables back over. And they were just fastened down by the two fasteners. This one here was actually for the fuel rail. So I didn't have to remove that. Pay attention, Eric. I have to get this stuff back on. This one pops into place. This one hooks into place. This one also hooks into place. Careful with this plastic. I think it's as good a time as any to install my air cleaner. This throttle body's looking a little bit dirty, so I'm just gonna do a quick cleaning on it. Okay, I'm taking out the 10 that I had set aside for this little ear right here. And you can see that I need to slide this in here just right. So I think that's got it. My 10mm in here. Snug up that 8mm. Redo my clips. Reconnect the fresh air PCB. I don't want to forget my friend, the ground cable. These lines back in. Reinstall my dipstick and my ground cable. I guess let's start it up and see how it sounds. I don't like that at all. I've got to be honest with you, I really don't like the way this thing sounds. It's kind of disturbing. It sounds like it sounds bad. I did some research and I found out that this is not an uncommon problem, and most people were saying lifters. I would have a tendency to agree with that. As far as the rocker assemblies that I removed and inspected, they did look worn. How much they're contributing to the noise, I really couldn't say. But there is oil delivery to the very top of the engine. That's the very last place to get oil, is up when we put those paper clips in those rocker assemblies. And they were all filling up nicely, so it wasn't like one wasn't. So that says to me, and that oil comes from the lifters themselves. Now, the lifters can break down internally and still pump oil, but not open the valves as much and obviously make the noise that they're making. So that's what I suspect. I don't know. I wish I could give you more, but this is as far as we can go in this video. So we'll just call it a valve cover replacement and engine noise inspection. Not sure exactly. It was fun. I hope you had fun. seeing what the engine looks like when it's running with the valve cover off. Oh yeah, and then if you do that, just use a pair of vice grips or something to pull out those paper clips, because they work their way down into those feed holes. I really am petrified of the idea of part of that paper clip breaking off and going down inside that push rod assembly. So if you're using like colored paper clips with that coating on the outside, don't do it. Make sure you use just metal, because you could rip that coating off, and that coating is enough to possibly clog something up. So be careful with that if you want to try that little experiment. But it works on all push rod engines. You can run them with the valve covers off. If you do something like that, that'll keep the oil from spraying out everywhere, because if I didn't do that, I mean, it would squirt out, and we don't want that. But I hope this information was helpful to you and possibly entertaining. I'm Eric the Car Guy. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and always at EricTheCarGuy.com, where I ask that you go to the forum to ask your automotive questions, should you have any. And we'll do our best to help you. In fact, that's pretty much where I go to answer those questions. Anyway, I will close now with be safe, have fun, and of course, stay dirty. See you next time. Wrap it.